as a parent, you don't want something, even a shadow of that thought anywhere near your child, your family, or anybody you love.
I never wanted to do this show.
The way this case affected the entire country shows you that it doesn't have to be somebody in your family to affect you in a certain way.
I was grateful that I got to know about a lot of his characteristics at a much later stage, because I came on board at the very last time.
मैंने फर्स्ट राउंड सेल्फ में दिया ऑडिशन, फिर सेकंड में हम आए जहाँ पे 14 बाबू थे साथ में, तो उनके साथ काफ़ी वाइल्ड एक्सपीरियंस था कि वो ब्रूटल सीन है पूरा हमारा, तो वो बॉडी पे मार्क्स भी देके गए मुझे। अब इतना टाइम अगर वो ढूंढने में लगा रहे हैं,
ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि हीरे हीरे हैं ये। करेगा ना?
The parents here.
I think
You say that every time. It's like one time.
Hello everyone, this is Ocean Fernandez from Midday, and joining me today in conversation is the supremely talented team behind the web series Raakh. Congratulations guys.
Thank you.
I did watch all the 8 episodes, and before I start, I'm going to tell you I'm very picky about what I watch, and the reason behind watching this is I love thrillers. I love projects that have a dark backdrop to it. But also now I try to stay away from it because I'm a mum, and this particular show, it's a parent's worst nightmare.
Yes.
And I want to ask some of the parents over here, how did you get into the headspace of coming on board for something like this, which consciously you just want to stay away from? I mean, you don't want to read up news that involves children, that involves stuff like this. So please, whoever wants to start first.
Who are the parents here?
I think.
You say that every time. It's like one time. No, I don't think that has creeped up as a,
As an emotion.
Yeah, not as a component like
Okay.
this. Now I must, think differently. I think by nature of that, I suppose, end up looking at the world differently, and therefore we would read things and maybe have, but it's not like it's one thing in my head. Of course, if I take it back and then I start sort of,
Yeah.
that's just the wrong way to go about it, man. That's like, yeah.
What about you, ma'am? Because this is so direct for you.
So definitely, this was not the material that I took on because I was a parent. In fact, I would say that I would hesitate if I was a parent to have to live. I've mentioned this before also. I worked at not thinking of it like a parent or because I don't want that. Even as a parent, you don't want something, even a shadow of that thought anywhere near your child, your family, or anybody you love. So definitely that was not the thing. The material was compelling. It was fantastic, the way it was written. This case is something that we've all heard of.
Yes.
And the fact that we were, it was inspired from something that I have grown up with.
Yes.
Was definitely a compelling factor, and no doubt about it, the creators, the director, the team, and what they were giving to me as an actor, the material that they were giving. That was the most compelling thing for me to
What about
take
you,
on.
Prosit? I mean, you have a little one as well.
Yes. But it has got nothing to do with the story.
Absolutely.
The story was so compelling in the very beginning, and I saw a lot of opportunities. A lot of opportunities to tell the story in a certain way, in a very different way. Play with so many of these amazing characters and actors. That drew me towards. In fact, I never wanted to do this show for a very different reason. Because I'm coming from Patal Lok. That was a cop. Anyways, that's a cop show, and coming on to this, another cop show.
Yeah.
But then I realized that this is so much more than just a cop show. This is, a study of the criminal minds,
Yes.
Getting into the grief, parental grief,
Yes.
so many other things, and also a different kind of non-linear storytelling. So all these things.
Mentioning grief, I think it's fabulous the way the two of you have expressed grief, so different, yet so in unison. I mean, for you, it's completely instant, where you just drop on your knees and you just let it all out at once. And because at that time you're the man of the situation, you want to take charge, you want to take care of things. But for you, ma'am, it was so different.
Yes.
It's denial,
Yeah.
and completely, a shock,
Yeah.
and then obviously eventually you accept it. When you were given these two aspects of grief, what was your reaction? Like, is this how we are supposed to emote?
I mean, for me, again, it comes from the writing.
Yes.
What was unique about this character, because of his background in the army, you would expect a certain,
Decorum behind it.
not decorum,
Or a
it's about
discipline?
a certain reaction,
Yeah.
because, he's a trained soldier,
Yeah.
he's a war veteran, he's a war hero. So you would expect a kind of a, macho, masculine
Yes.
anger and rage and trying to, some sort of revenge, all these things. But here it's the vulnerability, again, because it comes from the enormity of, no amount of training, no amount of discipline, no amount of, machismo can prepare you for something like this. This is like the ultimate tragedy. It's the end of not just your own life. It's basically it's your future is gone.
Yes.
It's a complete it's complete darkness. So within that, to find, first it starts with darkness, and then you have to find other layers of emotions. It starts with guilt, that I
Yes.
could not protect.
That I should have been there.
I should have been there. I am the father. I was supposed to go pick them up, or I should have dropped them. Things like that. Then there is again anger. There is frustration. There is helplessness, and after all of that, to find the strength to be able to breathe again, to still be around and still go on.
Yes.
So all of these things put together is what was quite amazing about it, because, like I said, the cliched way or the stereotypical way is, So
What
this
about
is
you,
what was appealing.
No, I second that completely. The cliche was not there in the way they had written the part. What drew me to it was the fact that she goes into denial.
Yes.
I love that fact that they'd given me that layer to play with, and it was but that is the reality of life. Everybody deals with grief in different ways, and you really can't predict how you will deal with grief.
Yes.
For me, I would say that maybe I will deal with it this way, but when it actually happens, you don't know how you're going to deal with it. And that was the unpredictability of how you will react to it, which was interesting. And this layer that was given to me by the creators was amazing. So it gave me something to play with and drew me to this character, to this grief. And also when you asked us the question about parents and about them being, the victims being children, you really don't have to think of it as yourself or your children or whatever. One, because the acting, the other thing is that the way this case affected the entire country
Yes.
shows you that it doesn't have to be somebody in your family to affect you in a certain way. And that's what this case did. And that's what this storytelling story for me was. It was really not as a parent, but as a human being.
Fantastic. I want to come to the writers, Anusha and Sandeep. How much creative liberty did you take when you were inspired by the real case, of course, but how much creative liberty did you take while writing? Because here we have the female gaze and we have the male gaze, and we see you have completely, I would say, eradicated the sexism. I mean, especially in that scene where, he says, oh, ab mujhe iska bodyguard banna padega, and you're like, oh, she's going to be your bodyguard.
Yeah.
And ultimately, obviously, we see towards the end how bravely she fought back for her brother to save him. How did you two come about that when you incorporated it in your writing?
The sexism part especially now. So we were always, we have always seen women in in position of power, position of in shows and films, several other places. They try to become the man. They try to become the man. So then that we wanted to cut out. And I want to point out this and also that dialogue like you know कि तू bodyguard है, because that is a very standard thing कि तू
Yes.
लड़का इसलिए जा रहा है क्योंकि मैं भी गया हूँ बचपन में, you know, हम सबको भेजा गया साथ में कि तू साथ में चला जा, सेफ्टी है, you know. In Delhi, I studied in Delhi, तो हमेशा हमारे फ्रेंड लोग होते थे, वो कार में होते थे, हम लोग बाइक में 2 लोग जाते थे कि वो, तो हमारा ये स्टीरियोटिपिकल हमारा इनबिल्ट है हमारे अंदर कि मतलब जो बंदे हैं वो लड़के हैं वो प्रोटेक्ट ही करेंगे, you know, but then we wanted to turn that thing, you know, so that is where this thing comes along, where he says also कि मेरी बेटी बहुत बहादुर थी लेकिन मेरा बेटा तो अंधेरे से डरता था, you know, and also like you know Nisar, who is the journalist,
yeah.
you know, she is not trying to fit in. That is where, like, you know, little nuance you try to put in that she is not trying to fit in the man's world. When she goes in that club and the people are cracking those jokes,
Yes.
you know, she is uncomfortable, and then when she comes out, she takes a swig of whiskey because that is what makes her, like, you know, that is man's world, that is entry to man's world.
Yes.
And a swig of whiskey, she takes it and she doesn't like it and she keeps it down. So we wanted these characters to accept their femininity, accept their women how they are, matlab not wanting to become somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, that is the one thought. Anusha, can you?
So, you know, we did know that it's about 2 perpetrators who are men, and you know, about a cop who is a man, and it was we did initially when we were creating the world, we did think about it. Should we get a woman, you know, as the cop and stuff? And then we thought that wasn't the world at that time.
Yes,
you know, there were
absolutely.
no cops who were there, and then but we did think that what if it is a character who is in touch with both his masculine and feminine side. You know, we don't have to invert the gender to make that point.
Yes.
And then we built it around, like, you know, we have so many men, how can we treat the men differently, and how can we have different type of men doing different things.
Yes.
You know, so that's where it started from, because we already knew that the world was a world filled with more men than the women. And so then when the characters of the women came about,
Yes.
like with Mona and Nisar and you know, Suman. So we knew that the screen time was lesser in comparison to the men, but they all needed to have something very distinct about them so that you remember them. It
Yes.
could be a dialogue, it could be an emotion. And for Nisar, it was what she says in the end, you know. And we wanted that to come from a place of absolute empathy and compassion,
Yes.
which would sound like a woman's voice when she's writing that article.
You know, I'm curious to know who came up with the mutton wale bauji ka beta.
No, it was we created, like, we are the creators of the show, so
Yes.
almost everything is
So
coming
he
from
did
here.
say the
Yeah.
story yesterday.
Yes. Yeah,
You want
yeah.
to talk about the, I think, Bitya.
Yeah, so actually, हाँ, sorry, मुझे भूल गया था. Sorry, so हम लोग जब स्कूल में थे ना, so like, you know, the trauma, like, you know, the kind of traumas that as a child, as children, we have also given to a lot of people.
Yes.
So हमारे स्कूल में एक वो होती थी, एक प्यून लेडी हुआ करती जो टीचर्स को पानी पिलाया करती थी, तो सबको जाके पानी पिलाते थे. हमारे वहाँ पे इनको बाई बोलते हैं कि बाई आके पानी पिला रही है करके. तो हर डॉटर, like, you know, studied B.Ed, whatever, like, you know, educated. She got job in our school, and she became. We were in class 8th and 9th, and she became a science teacher. You know, so we never. I don't remember her name. We used to call her Bai ki Bitya. So that, like, you know, and we were all, like, you know, making fun of her. Bai ki bitya aane wali, chalo Bai ki bitya aane wali hai. That, like, and like within a year she left the job. Because she realized, मतलब सबको पता चल ही जाता कौन क्या बोल रहा है, you know. The trauma that she left with, that much later when we started writing about it, much later we realized कि मतलब there is a person who is, you know, trying to be an inspector, trying to be this, like, you know, मतलब इन वर्दियों पहन के उसको लग रहा है कि मैं यहाँ पे पहुँच गया हूँ, जगह मैंने मुकाम हासिल कर लिया है, बाबूजी आ जाते हैं मटन लेके.
Yes.
And then that becomes his identity. And that is the identity that he fights about.
I'm
And
sorry,
that-
just to add that, and when we were writing, we debated it that if it was someone who was from an upper caste, they might not have called
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So then that was
True.
And also, like, you know, for Ghanshyam's character, for the father's character, that was his fitting in mechanism.
Yes.
You know, this is the only way he could do.
Yes.
And he says, if you see this,
Karchi hai
he says
hamara.
Karchi, you know. So
Yeah.
this is what he was fighting for, that stigma, that judgment.
Fantastic. Coming to our menacing antagonists, Babu and Racho. I mean, आपने जब अपने आप को इस कैरेक्टर में देखा, क्या आप खुद डर गए थे कि यार हमने मतलब ये क्या पोर्ट्रे कर दिया है, अब हम लोग हमको इसी नज़र से देखने वाले हैं अब?
No, not at all.
Yes, yes.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, in your personal life, you do think about it, but then, if you're playing that character and if you think that while performing that, then it won't be a justice to the character. So while performing it, never, like not even once, I was thinking that
When you went through the backstory,
Yeah.
given how brutal it is,
Yeah.
his upbringing and how his mother is like
Yeah.
charred and all of that, I mean, it kind of gives us goosebumps when we watch that scene, and when we realize this was literally a psychopath who was brought into this world, and whatever he did. What was your reaction when learning ki this is the part that I'm playing and it has so many layers? But I mean, what?
I mean, I think I was grateful that I got to know about a lot of his characteristics at a much later stage, because I came on board at the very last time, and like when I was reading it and it was all unfolding in front of me. So yes, I didn't get a lot of time to process about it. I mean, I had a very small gap to start working on it rather than thinking a lot about it. So I think I just
And you did a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
What about you, Ramandeep?
आपको तो सबसे पहले बड़ा अच्छा लगता है जब इतनी अच्छी स्क्रिप्ट आपको मिली है
जी।
जिसमें बहुत डिटेल्स हैं कि आपका बहुत सारा काम इजी हो जाता है ऑलरेडी, बट और उसका जो बैक स्टोरी है वो ऑलरेडी इतना हिटिंग है कि उसके पास हर काम की जस्टिफिकेशन है, क्योंकि वो हरियाणा से आ रहा है बैकग्राउंड से जहाँ पर मेल डोमिनेंस है
जी।
कि आप भाई क्या हाल है, वो वाली बातचीत, और वहाँ पर उसकी नसबंदी हो जाती है उस सोसाइटी के बीच में। तो वो कैसे डील किया होगा उन लोगों के बीच में, या क्या हुआ होगा, कि हमने तो क्रिएटेड इवेंट्स भी बनाए थे अपने लिए, लाइक विद इवेंट्स। तो एक म्यूज़िक था जो पूरा बैक स्टोरी के फ्लैशेस देता था मेरे को, तो मैं अपने जोन के लिए वो म्यूज़िक सुनता था। और एज एन ह्यूमन एज एन रमन जब मैंने पहली बार स्क्रिप्ट पढ़ी थी तो मेरे को रोना आ गया था कि भाई ये करना पड़ेगा। बट जब आप एक किरदार में जा रहे हो तो मैंने कभी ये तो नहीं चाहा कि लोग मेरे से डरें या मेरे से वो करें, बट मेरे को ये था कि मैं उसको जस्टिफाई कर पाऊँ जो मैं कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि अगर उसमें कमी रह जाएगी तो मैं, क्योंकि हमारे मीडियम में ये कि ये काम शायद पुश्ते देखेंगी जो, क्योंकि ये डिजिटली जा चुका है
जी।
तो मेरे को नहीं चाहिए कि उसमें कमी रहे, कि कुछ भी कमी फील हो। और ऑडिशन काफ़ी वैसा था कि पहली बार ऐसा लीड के लिए आया मेरे को, तो ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटी बहुत कम आती है, क्योंकि बॉम्बे जैसा शहर, जैसे सर ने बताया कि बाबू के कैरेक्टर के लिए उस एज ग्रुप में सबने टेस्ट कर दिया था। और सर मेरे को बाद में पता लगा कि मैं वेरी फर्स्ट आदमी था जो कास्ट हुआ उसके लिए, मुझे तो नहीं पता था क्योंकि हमने फर्स्ट राउंड सेल्फ में दिया ऑडिशन, फिर सेकंड में हम आए जहाँ पे 14 बाबू थे साथ में, तो उनके साथ काफ़ी वाइल्ड एक्सपीरियंस था कि वो ब्रूटल सीन है पूरा हमारा, जिसमें तो वो बॉडी पे मार्क्स भी दे के गए मुझे, बट एट द सेम टाइम वो अच्छे एक्टर्स थे सारे, मतलब वो अपना काम करके आए थे, क्योंकि उन्होंने जो हमारी कास्टिंग टीम है, वैभव सर, आयुष भाई, वो पुणे वगैरह गए थे कि उसमें कोई था वाकई मैकेनिक था वो लड़का, एक लड़का था जिसने ऐसा कुछ फील किया हुआ था, तो वो रियल लाइफ इवेंट्स अपने खुद के लेके आए और उन्होंने वो स्टोरी बताई, जो क्योंकि हमारा ऑडिशन टाइम भी एक वर्कशॉप हुई कि आपको ऐसा समझो आपको ये रोल मिला ही नहीं, तो उसमें एक आदमी था, एक लड़का था, उसने वो ऐसा था कि नहीं मेरे को करना है, मेरे को करना है, मेरे पास ये आखिरी मौका है, मैं मर जाऊंगा, ये वो, लाइक भाई ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा ही प्रेप होके आया है, मतलब इतना मूवमेंट में था, तो मैं ऐसा आउट हो गया था ना, ये क्या हो रहा है। तो वो काफ़ी मतलब बहुत ग्रेटफुल हूँ मैं कि मैं कास्ट हुआ इसके लिए, ऐसे लोग मिले मुझे, और हेड्स ऑफ टू कास्टिंग टीम की, उन्होंने इतना टाइम दिया, क्योंकि 3 से 4 महीने तो कास्टिंग प्रोसेस में चले गए उसके ढूंढने में लोगों को, तो अब इतना टाइम अगर वो ढूंढने में लगा रहे हैं,
ये
तो
कहना चाह रहे हैं कि हीरे हैं ये
करेगा ना
मतलब वो तो जनता बताएगी कि हम हीरे हैं,
बता दिया है ब्रो।
तो लाइक मैं बहुत ग्रेटफुल हूँ प्रोशित सर का, अनुषा मैम का, संदीप सर का, कि क्योंकि इससे पहले मैंने बहुत फन पार्ट किया था, मेरे को ऐसा इमेजिन कर पाया इन्होंने, और होपफुली मैंने उसको जस्टिफाई किया।
जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। थैंक यू सो मच एंड कंग्रेचुलेशंस वंस अगेन एंड ऑल द बेस्ट।
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.